Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, immediately picking up after the events of the last episode, you have John just basically running away from the scene, and he's just kind of falling apart, thinking about Lamar, thinking about his friend, his partner that's gone. And just because I think for him, it's more so like his helplessness. My friend died trying to save me. The fact is, I thought I was it's that thing of Captain America is such a large state. It's this large symbol that he still has yet to live up to. Even with the super soldier serum, it's like I can't do it. It's still not enough. I wasn't able to protect the person I care about. And so he's basically having a breakdown where he's like, you know what, Lamar said the work isn't done. He's like, it's not. He's right, it's not done. The fact of the matter is, I got one of them, but it's like, no, Carly's still out there. The rest of the Flag Smashers are out there. My work isn't done. The fact of the matter, and I thought that was such an interesting thing where he's just trying to keep going, of just like him, just like I said, he's in this moment of just kind of breaking down, and then he just kind of gets stoic and just goes, right, there's still work to be done. But then Sam and Bucky show up and is like, we have to stop you. And you could tell Bucky's like annoyed. He's looking at the shield covered in blood, because it's like both him and Sam are looking at that like, you're tarnishing, it's a complicated thing because they know about the shield's history. Granted, Sam learns a little bit more, but at the time, at face value, it's like, that's our friend's shield. Like, use this symbol that represented Steve's legacy. You've got it covered in blood, and it's like that legacy is tarnished now. Like, everyone international around the world has seen what you did and knows what you did. So, but it's like, just hand over the shield. It's like, we'll get it. Like, we'll explain everything, and then they'll be at least try to be a little bit more understanding. But he's like, hey, you almost got me. He's like, you just wanted the shield. That's all you've ever wanted. So they're like, we didn't want it to come down to this. And they proceed to fight. And I don't know if this is what they're going for. It seems like it might be, but it reminds me of when Bucky and Steve went up against Tony in Civil War. It kind of reminds me of that, like the back and forth and stuff like that. It was a freaking sick battle, though, dude. Once again, just like Sam using his maneuverability at one point, spreading his wings and tripping John. But like, that fight was amazing, dude. Holy crap. And I think that also proved, to be fair, John beforehand wouldn't have been able to go toe-to-toe with him. But Lucky has the benefit of, yes, he's not the most skilled fighter, because, yes, Sam has the equipment and the maneuverability and the skills to kind of compensate for not having the super soldier serum. He's still at a disadvantage, but Bucky, they kind of balance each other out. Like, he has the mobility and the tactics, whereas, Bucky's more like the raw power. So both of them together kind of compensate, And so it's like, I think John is able to kind of bridge that gap more because of the super soldier serum, which isn't to say he's not a decent enough fighter, but I think it's just he wouldn't be able to kind of bridge that gap between him, Bucky, and Sam if it wasn't for the super soldier serum. But that moment, they're grabbing the shield off of him. I was like, I don't know if that's another thing. It's it immediately makes me think of right when they're trying to get the Infinity Gauntlet off of Thanos. It kind of reminds me of that on Titan. It kind of reminds me of that scene. And then they're just Sam's got the shield activating his boosters. Bucky's just pushing on his arms. I was like, uh-oh. And then they break John's arm. But even then, he won't stop. And I love the combo of Bucky lifting him up, Sam just coming over, bam, and they just all kind of fall out. And Bucky gets up, picks up the shield, and he tosses it next to Sam covered in blood. And I think it's almost like he doesn't say anything, but I think it's that silence is supposed to mean none of this would have happened if you had just taken the shield like you were supposed to. Steve left you the shield, and look what happened. Look at it being tarnished. Look at the blood on it. That's kind of how I took it. And even Sam looking at it, because he blames himself. It's none of this would have happened if I'd taken the shield. That resonates inside of him. And obviously the government's made their decision of they're going to take over things. So Sam and Bucky are forced to stand down as they work out this whole thing with John, because John gets brought up in front of a council for what he did. It's you're not getting court-martialed, and the only reason for that is because of your exemplary record. But the fact of the matter is, you're going to be stripped of your record, your medals. You will no longer be able to associate with the U.S. military. But for him, and this is that complicated thing of John was made to be this. He's, once again, Steve was initially like, yeah, the super soldier serum, yeah, but what was he initially? A poster child. They wanted someone to be their representative, and now the moment it's going sideways, they're like, whoa, we disavow you, we have nothing to do with you. And he's like, you don't understand extenuating circumstances. We do, and that's the only thing we're accounting at, sure, but it's not enough. He's like, the fact of the matter is, I forgot what the exact wording was, but basically he's had to follow their rules. I've done everything. I'm what you made me to be. He's almost saying, like, no matter what you do, I'm always going to be Captain America. They're like, no, you're not. And he just simply walks away. But for him, your mandates. He's like, I followed your mandates every aspect of the way. I've done all that you wanted me to be and do. I've sacrificed everything of who I am to be what you needed me to be, what you wanted me to be. And this is what happens. I became Captain America because it fit what you needed. You wanted the perfect kind of poster child. You wanted someone of your own making, someone of your own creation. And now that it's backfired, you want nothing to do with me. You made me into what I am. And that's the sad thing is, if it wasn't for certain aspects of probably like some of the stuff he had to do, some of the orders he was given, would John be who he is right now? Like, maybe it's some of the experiences him and Lamar went through that kind of awakened that darkness in him, that those insecurities, that darkness. It was all bubbling there because he's had so many people kind of hold him up on this pedestal of like, yeah, you're going to be Captain America. I mean, even before then, they heralded him as this hero, which obviously he didn't feel like a hero. So once again, that's where those insecurities come. And now they're heralding you as like, oh, the new Captain America. Once again, it's a big mantle to fill. And he just kind of walks away, when it's all said and done. So, yes, it's inexcusable what he did. He didn't have to go as far as he did because at the end of the day, that dude had nothing to do with what happened to Lamar. But it's just John was so blinded by rage, he killed the first person he could get to. And, then we get a surprise appearance from Julia Louis-Dreyfus as a character named Valentina. I was like, what? That's crazy. Obviously from like Veep. I haven't seen the show, but I've heard nothing but really good things about it. But obviously, like, the most iconic thing she's known for is Elaine from Seinfeld. I was like, holy crap. And her kind of squirming in, being like, hey, call me Val. Well, actually, don't actually call me Val. You can think it, just don't call me that. So she like nestles down between John and his wife. It's like, so the fact of the matter is, it's like, if I were in your position, I would have killed the son of a bitch too, It's like kind of almost trying to play into his ego of like, no, you did the right thing. Those people in there, nah, they're looking out for themselves. But you did the right thing. Like and it's also, this firecracker of a wife. It turns to her, it's like, hi. And it's like, the fact of the matter is, it's like, plus you took the super soldier serum. Yeah, we know about that. But also, I guess that's also not general information, so that's interesting that something that no one else should know. So they must have been keeping an eye on John for a while, and it's like, oh, you're the perfect candidate. Now, what that necessarily looks like and what that's going to represent, that's going to be interesting. It plays into stuff at the end of the episode. I'll circle back to that, but for her, it's like, the fact is that, oh, and don't worry about the shield. We know you don't have it, but we could use someone like you, and don't worry, the shield, it's not actually government property. It's actually kind of a gray area. So, hey, contact me. Well, one of the smartest things you ever did, besides marrying this firecracker over here, was answering the phone when we called, and gives him a card, and it's like, it's blank. So I was like, what the hell was that about? That's some super shady stuff of like, oh, when you're at your lowest point, someone comes here and is essentially promising you the world. Kind of to deal with, it seems like John's potentially setting up for a potential deal with the devil type of thing. So we'll see what happens in that regard. But obviously being told to stand down, and obviously Carly's still out there doing what she's got to do, especially now that the GRC is rounding up anyone that's helped them. Everyone's kind of getting arrested because it's like, hey, you're harboring fugitives and criminals, terrorists. So, yeah, and so many people are getting dragged into this. And for Carly, it's like, what do we have to do just to live in this damn world? It's like, we can never find, we had a place in this world, and the moment people return, we lost that place. We just been cast aside by this world. Like, we were forgotten. We were the ones that were here living, finding our way forward, and it's just like, we're cast aside. So what do we have to do to live in this damn world? Do we have to burn it to the ground? Just, she doesn't say that, but I think it's kind of that same philosophy. Like, do we have to burn it to the ground just to be seen, just to be noticed, just to be understood and not kicked aside and forgotten? And I think there's obviously a parallel between that, and because Carly said it last episode, or just that shield is a representation of all those who are left behind in more ways than even she understands, So you had Sam deciding that he was going to go home, and when he does, before he goes back home to, well, no, that was after he goes and visits Isaiah, and he brings the shield, but Isaiah's like, "Oh, don't even unwrap it." And it's the conversation of like, "Don't give me that bitter old man speech," and he's like, "What? And you're not bitter?" Like, the fact of the matter is, everything that happened to him, it's under, like, because for him, it's like, Steve's not the reason you were locked up. And I'm sure for Isaiah, it's like, I get it, you want to believe in the best in your friend. Yes, he might not have known about my circumstances, but they were basically chasing the high of, oh, there was a Steve Rogers, there can be another one. So, and I kind of had to suffer for it. So you can understand why Isaiah would not be as receptive to Steve as Sam and Bucky are, because it's like, me and many others were in our position because of him. Yes, it wasn't his fault, but we were the byproduct of him, And so Isaiah tells a story about being locked up, and the fact of the matter is, his wife being told that he died. He never got any of his wife's letters. They just put them in a box and hid them from him. Never hearing anything from his wife for that 30 years. That's the saddest thing, because it's like, for him, it's probably like, being experimented on every day. I'm sure it's a thing of like, you kind of want to die. You're being treated like this thing rather than a person. Because obviously for Sam, it's a thing of like, I don't understand, like, how did it go so wrong? And he talks about, obviously, him and many others were experimented on, but everyone got different versions of it. I forgot what he was saying, but he was saying it was going to be like a particular type of medicine, but they lied, not telling them it was a super soldier serum, and some died because of it. And there was even at some point they were sent on a mission, and basically some of his men were captured, but the government was like, yeah, let's just blow up that POD area. Isaiah wasn't down for that, so he went in and rescued his men, brought them home. But for him, it's like, was it worth it in the end? No, because at the end of the day, I ended up being the only one that survived. So I don't know whether it's like the trip back they died, or whether they just died from the imperfect super soldier in them. Whether, like, he never was specific about what actually happened to them after he rescued them. But when it was all said and done, he was locked up for 30 years and experimented on, and for him being blunt with Sam, it's like, I get it. You want to think me being locked up in jail wasn't just because I was black and they tried to hide their history, because that symbol of Captain America, it'd be tainted if people knew the truth about me, which that's actually the name, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's the name of this episode, isn't it? That's actually the name of the comic book that Isaiah comes from. It's called Truth. There's other subtitles to it, but it's like, he's like, I get it. You're trying to justify by being like, maybe there were other reasons. There's no way they could have just locked me up, because it's like, if the world knew about you, you'd be heralded as, you should have been heralded as a hero. But for him, it's like, you should know better than anyone. That, it's like, on some level, hence why you didn't take the shield, because America is not ready for a black Captain America. No black person would take up that mantle, because it's too much with it, because it's like, it's like, you want to say how much things have changed, how they've gotten better. It's like, have they really changed? Have they gotten better in certain regards? Looking at the world. Or so, like, you can make an argument saying like, maybe like Isaiah's kind of pessimistic. It doesn't but it's also like, I mean, it's not going through what he's going through. It's not even pessimism. It's in his mind. That's simply the reality of it. And even Sam recognizes that reality of, of it all too, of how things have gotten better in certain regards, but in others, they haven't. That sadly, they're just the same as they were during Isaiah's time, that, they would never let a black man be Captain America. And and that's the thing. Not sugarcoating it, saying those words. Like, that's the thing. Like, not just beating around the bush, literally saying the words, a black man can't be Captain America. They'd never want that. They'd never allow it. Like, it's like, oh, look, I mean, them wiping me from history, that's not new. They've been doing that for 500 years, So, like, why should my situation be any different? I mean, Sam's like, people need to know your story, but Isaiah's like, no, like, they think I'm dead, leave it at that. Like, what will bring my story to the forefront do, And that's the sad thing, I think. And I'm curious, is Sam going to do that? Like, he'll probably won't announce that Isaiah's alive, but he will let the truth be known that I'm gonna tell you about a man named Isaiah Brad. I'm assuming I don't know, because I don't think Sam's gonna just let that sit idly by. But when it's all said and done, it's given him a lot to think about. Isaiah's story, his perspective, what happened to him, and wondering himself whether or not he will take up the mantle. Like, can I be Captain America? Should I even be Captain America? Because by being a Captain America, am I, because I think for him, it's like you kind of got this twist, like Isaiah was almost kind of saying, like, you have this perspective of, you had this perspective of like, oh, Steve being who he was, that's all you really kind of know of. But obviously there's a lot deeper, darker stuff to the serum, to Captain America, to that shield, that red, white, and blue, what that means, because it's kind of like that red, white, and blue doesn't represent me, Isaiah, and it doesn't, can it really represent all of it? And that's the complicated thing of, if Sam took up the mantle, would it be kind of a disservice to what happened to Isaiah? Would it just be kind of like, almost like turning a blind eye to what happened to him? So he's kind of conflicted. At the same time, he had the whole situation with Bucky, who ended up tracking down Zemo, and it's in Sokovia where that monument stands for them, for everyone that was lost. And Bucky's there, and it's like, he's telling Bucky, it's like, the only way this is going to end is you're going to have to kill Carly. She, at this point, like, she's just going to double, and it's something Sam says, or she's just going to double down. So it's like, the only way to end this is to stop her. And then for Bucky, it's like, we're going to find a different way. And he points the gun at Zemo, and Zemo's kind of almost like, yes, because you are the killer. You were programmed to be a killer. So if Sam won't do what he needs to do because he's stubborn like Steve at trying to find another way, then you'll have to be the one to do it. But then Bucky pulls the trigger, nothing happens, and then he dumps all the other bullets out by representing like, that's not who I am anymore. I'm not that killer. We will find another way. We will find a better way of doing this. And there's almost this look in Zemo's face, I think, of almost like, right, you're not that Winter Soldier, even though you think you still are to a certain extent. So, and then the Dora Milaje. I think it's the Dora Milaje. I think last episode I kept just saying the Dora Milaje, but I think it's Dora Milaje is what they are. And even AO being like, yeah, you should probably steer clear of Wakanda for a little while, White Wolf. And he's like, I understand. Because Wakanda probably heard about like, oh, what you did? Yeah, not going to be really welcome. Because I'm sure like Shuri and everything, it's not going to be too happy. I'm sure, well, a lot of people in the royal family would not be too happy knowing like, right, we helped you out and everything, and you released our king's killer. Yeah, sure. I'm sure T'Challa and Shuri's mom's not going to be too happy about that. I'm sure T'Challa, that whole thing of like, I'm assuming like, they haven't decided what they're going to do about that, but I'm sure like where this is currently taking place, he's still alive in his continuity, so T'Challa and Shuri probably aren't too happy about that either. So, but before they left, he asked for one more favor, so Sam's back home trying to help out, because I think for him it's like, I don't know what to do about this Carly thing or this Captain America thing, this shield. I can at least help out my family. I can be there for them. And it's even something I thought was kind of interesting where basically his sister's saying that he's basically fighting two wars. A war on both fronts, of a war at home, considering everything Isaiah, what it means to be a black man holding his shield, what it means to be a black Captain America if he decides to go down that route, but also this war against Carly and the Flag Smashers. It's like, there's so much going on at once that it's like, she didn't say this, but I was wondering, was she kind of implying that Sam's going to have to pick one? And I guess it's not. I guess she's just saying, like, you are kind of divided right now between the wars you're trying to fight. Because, like I said, he came back home because I think he's trying to help out his family. Because it's like, she's like, shouldn't you be out there saving the world? He's like, you guys are part of that world that I'm saving. So helping you out is part of saving it, And so it is a thing of, like, I think coming home was his opportunity to do some good. It's like, I don't know what to do on this other front, but at the very least, I can come home and do some good. So on that angle of things. They call in some favors to get the boat fixed up because the dude that they were trying to sell the boat to kind of backed out, so they're kind of screwed on that front. So Sam's suggesting calling in favors because their mom would kind of help out people time and time again around the neighborhood. It's like, oh, calling in favors, and people happily, it's like, oh yeah, anything for the Wilsons. And it's like, yo, Falcon, and it's like, yeah, everyone's coming in to chip in, and it's like, oh, how do we get this on a boat? Bucky shows up, helps out and everything. I love the bits between him and Sarah. And he's like, oh, hi. And she's like, oh, hey. He's like, I'm Bucky. And she's like, Sarah. He's like, Sarah. And then Sam's looking like, what's going on here? Even later on, be like, yeah, stop flirting with my sister. It's like, right. Oh, yeah, Sam really wouldn't appreciate that at all. But you would definitely, it's like, yo, like, Sarah was kind of feeling the vibe, too. So I thought that was kind of neat. But, I love the whole thing of, like, he helps out with, like, a thing, and then, like, Sam's like, why don't you use your metal arm? And then Bucky had to stop. He's like, well, I kind of forget about it sometime, you know, understandably, so I'm actually right-handed, so I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, you know, but kind of like this bonding moment they had. He had brought that suitcase from Wakanda, being, like, a new suit, because I didn't talk about it, but, like, Sam's wings getting ripped off and everything. I was like, oof, that could have gone a lot nastier than it did in that fight against John. Which, speaking of John, him going to Lamar's family, it's like, that guy, he's the one that killed our son. It's like, yep. And it's like, if the person who had actually killed Lamar, if they were still out there, they wouldn't be out there. So the fact is that he's lying like that because he's trying to justify himself, because in his own twisted mind, it's like, no, like, it was a bad person. It doesn't matter. They're all the same. They're all responsible for Lamar's death. Like, the fact is that you can't bring yourself to it, because he doesn't want them to look at him the way the rest of the world is looking at him. It's like, oh, you're a murderer. Like, at least he wants their praise. He wants I mean, it's a twisted thing of, like, if they're on his side, he doesn't feel as alone in the world, because it's like, yeah, they support. It's like, yeah, that monster gets what he deserves for killing our son, even though he didn't do anything, because John doesn't want to admit his failure of, I didn't actually kill the person that killed Lamar. Because he'll feel more like a failure, and he doesn't want to look like a failure through their eyes. I don't know whether Lamar's sister kind of sees through his BS or not, or whether it's just kind of a thing of, you were supposed to be my brother's partner, but you weren't there when he needed you type of thing. I don't know. And so he's saying, like, whatever you need, I'll always be there. But then he walks by that wall that says, like, John Walker, Cap is back, and it's just a reminder of his circumstances, and just kind of pisses him off more. But, what I also appreciate is Bucky and Sam trying to help with the boat, and then, like, Sarah's like, whoa, you guys don't know what you're doing, just get out of here. And all right, and they, like, bail in. It's like, oh, she's so mean. It's like, oh, it's tough love, you know. So that back and forth, but then they toss around the shield a little bit, and it still feels a little off. But I thought it was kind of interesting, like, Bucky kind of opening up to Sam, and I thought it was a really nice moment between the both of them, where he talked about the fact is, neither me nor Steve knew what it meant for a black man to take the shield. Like, we both had no idea, and he apologizes because he got on Sam's case about it. But it's like, right, what this shield represents. This shield has a lot of history to it, and for him, it's like, it's not just Steve, it's Isaiah, and it's just like knowing, like, the heavy burden that put on Isaiah, what that did to Isaiah. Like, he looks at it now from a different perspective, because for him, he had brought it up, was it in episode 2? Yeah, it was episode 2. The whole conversation of if Steve was, like, the fact is he was just upset because it made him question everything. It made him question Steve. It made him question Sam. It made him question himself, because, you know, if Steve gave him that shield and everything, then it meant, like, okay, Steve was right about everything, but Sam kind of denying it, tossing it away, meant he was wrong about everything. But it is a situation where, Sam had to be like, you can't live by what other people think of you and who people believe you to be. The fact of the matter is, and he's coming from the perspective of someone who does talk to soldiers who have, PTSD. Like, as he was trying to talk to Carly last episode, he's kind of talking to Bucky in that regard of, like, your list and everything. Because obviously that's another angle to it, because for Bucky, that shield is the only reminder he has left of his family. Like, Steve's the only family he had left, and for that to be gone, like, that shield being tossed aside was like losing the one piece of his family he had left. It was all he had left of Steve. And it's like, that's why he was almost like holding on to this notebook. And it's like, it served Steve, so I thought it could serve me. But it's like, obviously, you have to not hold yourself to being what people want you to be. And I think that kind of applies to Sam as well. but telling Bucky, like, work on your list, and he's like, I'm making amends. It's like, no, you're not making amends, you're avenging. The fact of the matter is you're just going after the people that benefited from your time as a Winter Soldier, but the fact of the matter is you're not actually kind of, you're not, and you're saying sorry, but you're not really just like helping these people. So it's like, there's got to be at least one name on that list, and he's like, there's a couple. He's like, good, just start with one, which we know one being his buddy from the first episode, the old man of like, right, like something that eased his mind by letting him know the truth about what happened to his son, because he never knew the truth. So it's going to be interesting. Is Bucky going to finally tell him the truth? So, because it's like, you still have those nightmares, don't you? He's like, every night. So this is Bucky's way of, taking those steps forward to kind of, he's still being haunted by who he was as a Winter Soldier, but this is your chance, your opportunity to finally break free of that, no longer being what, and we saw that earlier in the episode when he didn't pull the trigger, because like pulling the trigger would be what Zemo saw you as, the killer that Hydra had made you into. It's like, that's not who you are. You don't have to be defined with other people. Once you kind of decide who you're going to be, and I think that speaks volumes for Sam as well. But him and Bucky go their separate ways. It's like, when you need me, I'll be there. It's like, yeah, we were bound by, like, we're co-workers, like, friends of, like, we both had a mutual friend in common. It's like, yeah, but he's gone. And that's also another thing, too. We can't live by Steve's standards. Like, we can't be like Steve, because Steve's not here anymore. We kind of got to basically find our own flow, ebb and flow to this whole situation. So we have, like, Sam in his training montage, which I like that they show. Like, hey, this wasn't like, oh, I immediately got to this, I was perfect. It's like, no, he stumbled, and he's working hard at it. And I really like that they're incorporating Sam's own style to it, like his maneuverability, how he's handling it with the shield is like him doing it his own way. But he's also at a disadvantage of, like, right, he's the only one, well, currently that's kind of using the shield that doesn't have, like, the super soldier serum in him, so, but he has to find his own flow, and I think that's going to be even more so when he, puts on the new suit. We don't get to see it, we're not going to be able to see it till next episode. But at the same time, we have Carly working with that guy. It's like, oh yeah, like, Sam busted him and he wants revenge against Sam. So it's like, Sam is actually trying to help you, and you're not at the point where it's like, okay, he helps us, but he also gets to kill Sam. It's like, come on. I guess she's still blaming Sam, thinking like, oh, Sam was working with Captain America. It's, despite Sarah's conversation, it's like, I don't know. I think for her, it's just like, yeah, I don't want Sam dead, but hey, means to an end type of situation. Because I guess it's like, right, Sam has his own part to play in it because our friend died because of, John, and that in her mind, maybe it just makes Sam just as culpable. So we'll see where things kind of go on that front. Now that I'm thinking about it really quickly, I do apologize kind of throwing this out of nowhere, but I forgot to talk about it when the Dora Milaje said that they were going to take Zemo to the raft. So it's not like we've seen the end of him. Like, I'm sure he can pop up later on being... I think he could definitely become the new Loki, the MCU villain that they keep around, because most MCU villains end up dead after like one movie or so. So this could be an opportunity to keep him around for future stuff. I mean, he has a really good mind on him. So yes, he's a villain, but it might be kind of that Hannibal Lecter thing if we come to him when we kind of need his help type of thing. So we'll see where things kind of go on that front. But other than that, circling back to it, Carly is willing to kind of do whatever now, because it's like she's got to make her point, because there's a GRC like bill or something that's going to be was it the Patch Act, where basically those 20 plus million refugees are going to be forced to go back to their countries of origin, and it's like their birthplaces, and it's like for her it's like, they think we're, criminals anyway, so why don't we just play into the role and work with criminals as long as it means we get the end results that we want, like whatever the cost may be, So, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens on that front. But, we see at the ending, like, obviously they're planning their strike in New York. But then we get like our post-credit scene where we see John making his own shield. So the question is, like, is he becoming U.S. agent, or is it that thing of, no, I got the shield, I'm Captain America? Yeah, but no buts. I'm Captain America. I'm Captain America. So in this continuity, he might be more of a rogue agent. That might be where the U.S. agent comes into place. Like, he might not be that yet. He might still be parading around, I'm Captain America, got the super soldier serum. And that's where Valentina comes into place, where it's like, oh, like, we're this clandestine organization, and you will be our boots on the ground. Like, whether he'll be a mercenary for hire, you know, it might be a thing of like, right, the government can do whatever they want to, but you're the one that's really going to look after America's best interest type of thing. Like, whereas they want to throw you to the wolves, we won't cast you aside because we see how valuable you are. You're a man that's willing to do what needs to be done. Kind of cutting through a lot of red tape, so it might be that. Like, I'm interested to see what they're going to make that as, whether it's just going to be a thing of, I am Captain America, I got the shield, I'm still Captain America, ugh, or is it going to be him taking up the mantle of U.S. agent? At the very least, if it's not, I think it's going to be the opening roads to that. So I think it's actually interesting that they've done this again, because I think they did it with WandaVision, where they did no, that was actually I don't remember if the second to last episode had. I think the third to last episode had a post-credit scene. Some of them did, but not all of them. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So it's going to be interesting to see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. Next episode is the season finale, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see ultimately how this all ends up playing out. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.